Hey guys, we're going to talk about today is the importance of food plots. I've always asked this question all over the country, all over the whitetail range on multiple farms per year. This is one of the questions, like I say, a lot of we'd like to talk and teach on things that are a question on your mind. If they're a question on your mind, they're probably a question on someone else's. That's a big strong point for me across the entire year, because what happens is that's kind of what I tie my new additives to my habitat books that I give all my clients. I'll add is just that I add these things to that package every they're available to last year's clients. I build new ones on this year. If the questions keep jumping up around the country, like I said, if we're talking about it numerous times out of 80 clients a year, 60 clients a year, 80 clients a year, whatever that number ends up being every year, let's say 30-40 clients a year, it's that same talk, whether that's hinge cutting, food plots, timber, TSI, whatever that is. We'd like to learn from that. So this topic today is food plots. We're going into a time here that is pretty crucial on the start and what I believe is the outcome of a lot of folks' hunting success around the country. We're going into a time here per the date, per the calendar, that kind of starts and makes and breaks a lot of folks' success on their whitetail hunting properties. So that question, how important are food plots? Well, guys, food plots are very important. Food in general is very important. A couple of the things that I want to touch on today is, as we grow the channel, as I grow the business, one of the more important things that I like to focus on is not so much the volume of food plots, but soil condition, and teaching. Have been for years. I've followed Grant Woods for years. Doc is one of the best when it comes to soil condition, and over the years, not knowing any better, I was one of the tillage guys too. So that's something that we are, I'm learning and building on and bringing to my clients as far as, building better soil. Where that starts is, using your disc as the, what, I've heard Grant refer to this too as boat anchors. I'm asked a lot across the country, hey, what do we, do with this disc that we have? If you're saying don't use it, and you're saying, broadcast or no-till drill or whatever the case is, what do we do with it? And I always, kind of joke, but perfect thing to do is put them under your box blind location and tie a box blind down to them and use them as an anchor, right? That's my interpretation of it. And the reason I say that, guys, yes, it's a joke, and yes, that's going to ruffle some feathers with some, farm/hunting guys on here, and I get that. But you have to remember, in my world, 80% of my clients that I go on a year, the soil condition isn't correct. Soil is what starts and makes or breaks your food plots, right? And like we're talking today, the soil condition is what makes or breaks your hunt in a lot of places, because that is the outcome, that's the performance, that's the power of your plots, starts with your soil. So I'm just as guilty as that as anybody. Getting caught in this food plot, high fancy bag deal that's out there in this world today. Throw and grow. I love that term. Just throw it and it'll grow. Well, I highly recommend steering from those products. It's an art, guys. It really is. A lot of us that maybe you're one of them following the channel here, the folks just don't have the time, so it turns into a knee-jerk reaction. I highly encourage you not to be a knee-jerk reaction land manager as far as on your property. I know I'm not on my property and helping others with their properties. I really, one of the things to touch on as well, and the notes that I have here to touch on is, I would not lease, own, manage a property that food wasn't one of the key ingredients. Is obviously we know that food, cover, water scenario that these critters that we are chasing need. But the food plot kind of is at the pinnacle of it. But going into the next step of this video is this, guys. One thing to keep in mind is I'll say this now, I'll probably say it 1,000 times again on this channel. Your food plots are only as strong as the browse that backs them. So give you some numbers here. So to finish that, I always tell my clients, you can have 30-inch brassicas in your food plots going into fall. If you don't have the browse that backs them, someone else has your deer, the starting point of your deer. So if you don't have the browse that backs those food plots, meaning, locking these does or having the potential to lock these does in these bedding areas, what happens is these does don't know property boundaries. They don't know they just know where the nearest habitat is correct. Now, with that said, guys, everywhere in the country, keep in mind that 80% of my clients that I go on, the soil isn't correct. 100% of my properties that I go on, every year I haven't found one yet that we can't help benefit the soil and make it better. The browse, let's touch on the browse thing real quick here that backs that up, because it's part of your food spectrum. A lot of times it's overlooked. Everybody is talking about food. You're talking about ag. You're talking about food plots. No one's talking about browse. 90% of a deer's intake from the Midwest north, the further north you go, the higher that is. It never drops below 50%. What I'm talking about, guys, is that's the 50% to 90% of a deer's intake is woody browse. So like I said, that should connect the dots for you as far as having the big, beautiful food plots and not having browse. So is it, how do you get the browse? Do you have to have hinge cuts? No, you don't. Do you have to have timber management in those areas? Yes, you do. With that, backs that up too. Thermal cover. If you don't have thermal cover in there, you might have side cover. You might have food. If you don't have thermal cover, you're not going to have the deer holding that close to the plots when they're needed the most. They're going to travel. So all of this ties together, guys. When you have deer that are dependent on us giving them an aid to something as far as fall food, not so much summer food. That's kind of a debated topic, but fall food, we should all agree that's when they need us most. Obviously, that ties into our hunting strategies as well, but that fall food is something that they depend on, and they will seek who's doing it and who's not. Whether you're a late season hunter or not, guys, you need the power of food. So remember that. I would rather, we talk about food plot placements all the time. I'd rather you not plant a food plot if you can't get in and out of the farm. I'm not saying go into a farm, any farm, whether that's owned or leased, and just plant a bunch of food plots, not strategically, just to reach your tonnage requirements. One of the notes here I have as well is the 10% myth. When we're talking about food plots, everybody has this number in their head because of some, studies that have been done, or somebody has latched onto this over the years and made this a myth that 10% of your farm has to be in food. Well, 10% of your farm, maybe that's an accurate number as a whole as far as food, but that's not a food plot number. That will get you into trouble in a quick hurry. So what we do when I design properties with my clients across the country, we put the food plots where they need to be strategically. Then we worry about how big we can make them as far as our limits on being able to get around, access them. Obviously, we're not hunting over them, but we're hunting the movement going to and from them, and we're including them in our sanctuary outlook, if you will. So huge deal on food plots, guys, going into this time of the year. I highly recommend that. We just got our green cover seed order in for the farm in Kentucky. So when I get back to the farm here, the end of the month, we are going to be getting that incorporated into our plots. We've got a little bit of cleanup and stuff left to do after the logging around the edges. As soon as we get that done, we are going to be implementing the summer release program onto our plots. That will continue to grow all summer long until we get to August, and then we go in and broadcast that into the outstanding crop. This year is going to explode our food plot program on the Kentucky farm, because last year all we had as far as this thatch layer that you hear me talk about crimping this down, all I had was old hay. And like I said, instead of mowing it like most people would have done, I incorporated my brassicas into that and rolled it down and was able to slingshot me into this year. Now having that summer release program that is all built around, this biomass, this taller structure, and this green manure system that helps with fertilizer and lime and everything that comes with it, that is going to benefit our food plot system at the farm. So to answer some questions, going back, would I have a property, would I own a property, would I have lease a property that I wasn't able to do plot work on? Probably not, but I would make sure that no matter what size the food plots I was able to do, if any, that I had the browse that backs them, that doe bedding power within that first 100-yard rim that we speak of, to hold those does, followed up by potential buck bedding areas internal of the farm, seclusion, and food. You have to have the browse that backs the food plots, guys. So like I said, I'll probably say it 1,000 times, but your food plots are only as good as the browse that backs them. It's a slogan I came up with years ago, and it's something is about as powerful to me as my stay driven slogan that is now stay whitetail driven, but my stay driven slogan through life has been, and that's just it, because it holds so much power when we're designing, building, and maintaining these whitetail properties across the country. But that ties into this whole spectrum about food plots, guys. Like I said, 80% of my clients a year don't have great soil. Whether you're in Michigan and you have that sandy loam, or whether you're in Iowa and you have this onion ground, black onion ground is what I call it, right? It looks big, beautiful. The whole pinnacle of tying this whole food plot spectrum together, guys, remember, is, I get this all the time, so this is one of the last points here, and then we're going to wrap this one up. This is the the comment that I get. So I've got great looking soil on my farm. I don't need the summer release program, or I don't need a biomass anything. I don't need anything to put on top of the ground because I've already got great soil. Well, that could be true. Maybe you don't need the green cover seed. Maybe you don't need the fertilizer. You don't think of that releases the green fertilizer. But here's the truth of the whole matter is, guys, you need the cover on that for erosion, and also helping you with the water retention that follows that. Most folks just look at the ground, the color of the ground, the profitability of the ground, producing big, beautiful, or plots, or nice, let's say, bushels per acre, if you will, as we're talking about ag. But what you don't understand, what you get to, you don't get to see what I get to see across the country, where I walk in and see the you and I's of the country that are not mainly farmers, but we're food plotters, right? Going in to their food plots that are washed away, dried. You can pick it up, drop it in your hands, it blows away. The reason for that is, guys, is I don't have to, is the reason for that is when you lay that thatch layer down on top of these plots, it's water retention. You are creating worm bedding. Going back to the days, and I still try to use it, but I'm not there next to them to use it a lot now, but like the, Morgan's Composting out of Michigan there, that has that, Dairy Do line of products, the food plot do, it's all based off from organic matter, worm bedding, castings. It's all in there, right? And that's exactly what we're doing on this farm. Our farm's trying to build these plots. You lay that thatch layer down, guys. I don't worry about heavy rains for long term or long periods. I don't worry about last year, like on the farm, 28 days of a drought. And yes, the bulb of the food plots weren't big and beautiful, because I wasn't able to actually prep that before and get the fertilizer and lime and have that green cover seed on there. I had hay fields that I crimped down on it, and I'll show you the pictures of because then I went back through and layered the rye and the wheat, and look at the pictures of what I was able to create last year with those, just using hay because of the thatch layer. 28 days of a drought, massive rains in the fall. Everybody else's around the country food plots were washing out, drying out, and mine continued to have success. So I'm always learning on this too, guys. Right now, it's kind of it's a passion of mine. I really dig into this stuff as far as the food plots, because like I said, if you have the opportunity to plant a food plot system on your farms, I really think that you need to go the extra mile and look at the ground, study the ground, so you have the potential to have a successful food plot in the fall. The truth of it is, you know, guys, here in closing, is most folks spend a fortune on their food plot programs doing the wrong steps as far as tilling it, and not having the water retention, not having the security of that cover crop on top of it. And what happens is you get to fall and you have a failed food plot, and you end up with just rye and or wheat, maybe oats, something like that anyway, to try to rescue the plot. I'd rather see you having the grains and the greens on the one side, the grains on the one side, having the greens on the other, and having what I referred to a client the other day as having a buffet. And you can have that, but it starts with understanding the soil conditions and then building your whole structure of your management program through your farm off that.